Hello, welcome to An Abundance of Books. My name is Julia and today is our April reading vlog. We're doing the summer mixtape readathon in spring. If you haven't watched the TBR, it is linked below and above. That'll give you a better idea of what we're doing here. That will also link to Leanne's original video explaining what this readathon is. I don't know if there's really much more to intro. This is sort of just, we'll be going through my life. You'll watch me do some stuff. We'll try to hit everything on the board, but no pressure. And I think that we can get started with our first book, which is Before I Do by Sophie Cousens. Hi, still me. So apparently I lost whatever footage I had for this book. Did I delete it? Did I never film it in the first place? Nobody knows. So the concept of this book, before going into it, was I sort of had this idea that it was going to be alternate lives, sort of a sliding door scenario of should I marry this guy or should I marry this guy? It sort of ended up being that, but it was told non-linearly. You kept jumping between the actual wedding. So it starts on the wedding day and then you jump back 7 years, you jump back a couple hours, a couple months. And I felt like that really sort of ruined the tension of it. I don't generally enjoy books that are doing that unless it's a mystery and they're gonna pull something on me. So the two guys in this end up being her fiance, who you know is her fiance right from the beginning, the one that she is getting married to presumably, and then this other guy who's sort of the one that got away from 6 years ago or something, who ends up showing up to the wedding as someone else's plus one. And my big problem with this book was I didn't find it charming at all. I didn't really like the main character, and it's hard to set up a love triangle when I don't know either of these guys. Like, it starts with her fiance, but she never like says anything nice about him. He's just kind of a guy. But then you do get to see the beginning of her relationship with the one that got away, let's call him. And I just couldn't figure out who I was supposed to root for. I wasn't really rooting for anyone, but I also wasn't rooting for the main character. And in the end, it just kind of bummed me out. This uncertainty on her wedding day of just like she's gonna commit to this guy and she doesn't even know. So I wasn't having a good time. It was putting me in a bad mood. So what I ended up doing was DNFing it at 30%. And then I skipped forward to the end to find out who she ends up with, which I think was the right call for me. There was a little epilogue after about what their life together looked like, but I was not invested enough to read the whole book. So it's a weird way to start off the vlog. That's the first thing I read. It's a DNF, but I think it counts. I read 30% of the way into it. It was on my TBR too, so it's not like I could switch to another. Of course I could switch to another book, but it's also a free space and I read lots of things that month. So yeah, really disappointed because the last Sophie Cousens I read I absolutely loved. And a friend of mine read the one before this, like Sophie Cousens' first book, and didn't like that. So I wonder if it's just kind of a one-hit wonder thing. But that one hit is definitely a hit. If you haven't read Just Haven't Met You yet, this is a perfect book. It's very much woman coming of age, not coming of age, but self-actualization story with a bit of romance, with a bit of a triangle too that I thought worked out really well because you see the beginning of both of those relationships. It's just much more successful. Highly recommend this book. Don't recommend the book I DNF'd. Sorry for the interruption. Back to your regularly scheduled vlog. So I got this arm thing that had come recommended as like a stand for reading with your Kindle, and I really like it in theory, but it's quite jiggly, which is fine if you keep a hand on it at all times, which I kind of can, but also sort of defeats the purpose. So I really enjoy it. I just, if anyone has a recommendation of something a little less jiggly, I would love it. But also it's great for our visual aid. We are talking about The Spite House right now. The second book, come on. We're here to talk about The Spite House. Unfortunately, the second casualty of this vlog, because I decided to DNF at 33%. I stuck it out for that long. I wasn't feeling it in the beginning, but it's a haunted house story, so I wanted to get through all of the preamble and actually get to the haunted house. And by the time I did that and an allegedly scary scene happened and I didn't really feel anything, I decided to call it. There wasn't anything specifically wrong with this book. Like, there's nothing I can really pinpoint. I just wasn't invested. I truly think it's just a me thing, because even once we got to the haunted house, that didn't do anything for me. So I think our writing/reading styles are just a little bit incompatible. But this is also the Literally Dead book club, so I went ahead and watched the live show to get all the spoilers. And yeah, definitely some things happened that I could not have seen coming, but they were also just like listing all of the characters, and one of them, they were like the bad guy, and I made it to a third of the way in and that character never showed up. So that is bad. The pitch for this is, it is a dad and his 2 daughters who are nomadic. It seems like they've run from something and they're working odd jobs to make ends meet. And they find an ad in the paper, stay in the Spite House for a month or something and get $100,000. And they're like, great, we'll do that. Who cares if it's haunted? It's probably fine. And then I don't know what happens from there. Like, it's not that long, it's under 300 pages. Yeah, it just wasn't. I'm very happy with DNFing this. And having this have been the second DNF and the second one that I got pretty far into, I think I'm going to update the way that I do my spreadsheet to include DNFs. I don't usually do that because I DNF like within the first 10% almost always. So what I'm going to do is, where I have my star rating, I'm going to write DNF, and then I'm going to count the number of pages as the number of pages that I actually read. So that means that my spreadsheet and my Goodreads will be a little bit off because I'll count this as a read book. But like, I read a third of it and then found out what happens in the end. So I feel like it kind of counts. Other people count their DNFs. I feel like I have enough of an opinion on this to count it. So hopefully it won't happen again. It's the last DNF that we're doing for this vlog. It is also the start of beautiful weather. So my husband broke out the hammock today. So maybe I will steal it from him once he's done. Hello, this is the part of the vlog where we talk about ideal summer vacation / throwback. So what I did is I went to my parents and I grabbed 2 random photo albums. I don't know what's in these, but we'll find out together. I will say I think that I was very lucky with my family. We always did a big trip every summer and I got to see a lot of Canada through that, and I really appreciate my parents for doing that. The big thing we did when I was younger was we would go to PEI every summer and camp in our pop-up trailer, which was very fun with a bunch of my friends. Like, a bunch of families went together and I was friends with the kids. And then when we got a little bit older, we started going to Disney World a lot. So I'm hoping both of those will be in here, but either way, you'll get some cute baby Julia pictures. I should mention my dad went to school for photography, so my childhood was very well documented. Not a vacation, but this is a photo of me and my best friend in elementary school, and it's so cute going back through these. I like seeing her so happy, I guess. This is me carving a pumpkin for Halloween. Oh, I should say, when is this? So I'm 8 here, 8 or 9. This is just a cute picture of me and my sister and our many, many beanie babies. I think these are all hers, but I had just as many. I wish I would show you more. Like, I don't want to share too much. I'm blurring faces, but there's a bunch of photos of my mom in here, and she and I look so similar. It's so weird. So there's basically no summer pictures in this album. The only one is this one here. This is us at my grandma's trailer, which we would spend a lot of time at in the summer. Learned to play lots of card games. It was very important to me to be good at shuffling, what people call ruffle shuffle. So I would just sit there and practice, and it was very fun. I think that's also where we got bubblegum in my sister's hair, so I cut it for her so that nobody would notice, and you can imagine how well that went. On to the next album, a lot chunkier. In here I am 11 or 12. I could not tell you where we were when this picture was taken, and my sister and I decided to straw our hair. I haven't thought about that in so long, but it's so goofy and we look so funny, but like also fashion. Also, this pose that I'm doing, that was a favorite of mine. I hated having my picture taken. I assume because my dad would want to do it so much, but I think I don't feature as heavily in these photos because I didn't want to. I just get candid. I still stand by that. Never ask someone to pose for a photo, just get a candid. This is me and my sister deciding to have a sleepover in the kitchen for some reason. This is the trip where we went to Mackinac Island. That was very fun. So this is me and my sister tandem biking. I'm doing all of the work, as you can assume. This is me and my best friend at African Lion Safari, which I just want to take a quick detour here and talk about how I thought I was so fat. I have always thought that I was fat, and like, look at this child. She's so skinny. She has nothing to worry about, and it's so sad how much time she spent worrying about this. Anyway, not to be a bummer, but African Lion Safari. I loved African Lion Safari. Well, I've just hit first day of school, so I'm gonna flip forward a bit. Wow, you can't make this up. I flipped to Disney World. Maybe that's right. We used to go to Disney World in September. I think because that's a slow season for it right after school has started, and like there's not really much for you to catch up on. We were always good in school, so that's a good one. Me on the carousel, adorable. Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger spin, of course. This is one of our classic family photos. Really exemplifies, I know I'm blurring it, but my dad is just trying to look very nice, have a nice smile. My sister is doing a screaming face, and I'm doing a joke face. I feel like that explains a lot about us. Of course I have to show off how we all got matching shirts. How mine was enormous on me. It was like fully to my knees. And then we're back to Halloween, so let's flip forward a little bit more. Another one where my sister and I just wanted to mess with our hair. We decided to frizz it. Frizzing it was all the rage. We spent so much time just teasing it back. And fashion. What else can I say but fashion? How long have I been filming for? I'm doing this a lot. I don't know how much of this is gonna make it in. Oh, so this was, I don't know what it was called, but it was like, was it Santa's Village? That can't be right. That's in Ontario. There was this place that we went in PEI. I think it was some sort of Santa thing. And they had baby animals, like fresh newborn kittens that you could hold. It was so cool, and you like decorated cookies. It was definitely something Santa themed. Also, horseback riding. I love horseback riding. Horseback riding here was so much fun. If I had unlimited money, I would be a horse girly. I don't know how I'm not a horse girly. I have all the ingredients to be one. What was this place called? It was this castle in PEI. It was called like the Rainbow Place or something. Anyway, here's me and my mom rolling on it. There's a picture here. It just says worst campsite ever. No details, no nothing, but you can see we did a lot of camping. That's it for favorite summer throwback. I hope that was enjoyable at least. I don't think I've ever shown any childhood photos on here, so it was very fun to go through these. Alright, so I'm about halfway through A Certain Hunger by Chelsea D. Summers, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. I did not see this coming. It's such a strange book, but I think it's amazing. It's definitely dense. It's under 300 pages, but like it's taking me a long time to read because Dorothy is our main character and narrator. She is a writer and she just uses the most eloquent and insane sentences you've ever read. There's really not much more to say than the synopsis, which is Dorothy is a food critic and a cannibal, but there's so much personality in it. It's written to the audience. You know that Dorothy has ended up in prison and she's writing to the reader, and that's a very interesting perspective to follow, and it jumps around a lot, but it's really just the writing that's captivating. It's reminding me a lot of Cult Classic by someone. Sloane Crosley wrote Cult Classic, which is actually a very good comp title for this. That one's about this woman who kind of sort of joins a cult, but it kicks off where she randomly bumps into an ex one night, and then the next night she bumps into another ex randomly, and like these things seem preordained for her, but it's also just a very wordy, very stream of consciousness from this very unlikable woman talking about all of her like sexual exploits, And it's just, again, it has a lot of personality and very unlikable characters. Dorothy is a bad person, but she's so herself that you still kind of love her. It's also so interesting having a book that is, you sort of know the answer from the beginning, because she's in prison and she lists the names of the people that she's killed. So when that person shows up, you're like, not long for this dude. Which I'm sort of split on, because I like it, but I think in practice it is removing the momentum from the story. There's no sense of, like, you know, in a regular book it's like we're leading to prom night or something. There's no sort of build like that. It's just sort of stuff happens and then it's over. I think that's really my only negative, is that because of that style, I feel very unmotivated to continue sometimes, because you get to the end of the chapter and you're just exhausted. I also can't believe that this is a debut. The writing in it is stellar, and one of my goals for this year is to keep track of my vocabulary and new words that I've learned, and I've had to stop with this because it's just like every other page there's a word that I don't know. There's so much, and so much detail on cooking. She spends so much time talking about, like, truffles. They go truffle hunting and she explains the whole thing, and her language is just incredible. You know what? I don't have my Kindle with me. I'm gonna go get it and we'll read a couple quotes. This area, she's talking about how she is using an ice pick to carve off her own ice because she doesn't like ice cubes. And she says, there were cubes, of course, but cubes are frustratingly angular and unforgivably pedestrian. She's talking about ice cubes. She's amazing. I love her. It also talks a good bit about gender. So this is her talking about how she feels about femininity, I guess. Being a female is a prefab, thoughtless, soulless, and abjectly capitalist as a Big Mac. It's not important that it's real. It's only important that it's tasty. I like my truffles like I like my men. Italian. There's also a good amount of Italian spoken in the book. I'm doing it on Kindle, so obviously it doesn't mean anything to me, but if there is an audiobook, I bet it's amazing. This is her talking about truffles, and she says, it's earth made ephemeral, ephemera made earthy. How do you come up with that? This is her talking about how being a food critic is hard and very valuable. Without me and people like me, food commoners would be like Sims characters, turning endless, aimless circles, appetites spinning them into unrequited nothingness. I think you're getting a sense of the tone of the book at this point, certainly. And then there's this bit where she's talking directly to the reader, which I think is so brilliant. You slip into the supple skin of a cannibal for nearly 300 pages, and you enjoy it, and then you can slough it off, go about your happy moral business, and feel like you are a better person. Like, why is the book yelling at me for reading the book? And why do I love it? It's also reminding me of a nonfiction book that I read, Cannibalism, A Perfectly Natural History, that is just the history of cannibalism, and I think that's informing this a lot for me. And if you are if you're not a nonfiction reader, that is an excellent place to start with nonfiction. And I think if you pair the two, like a wine pairing perhaps, I'm becoming Dorothy already. Also, yeah, this is a book about food, and I don't like books about food, but I think it's maybe the relatability factor, because normally a food in a book is like talking about cooking comfort food and stuff. Maybe it's because she's meant to be unlikable. That's probably it. And yeah, I vastly dislike her and love her a lot. Hello, I am staying at a friend's house. I am cat sitting. There's one of them. Oh, chasing the other one, good. And I'm working from here today, but I wanted to take the chance to talk to you about A Certain Hunger, which I finished like 2 days ago. And I definitely needed some time to get my opinions in order. And I'm so conflicted, because in some ways it's the best book I've ever read and I love it so much. But in a lot of ways it is a drag. And I don't know that the format necessarily works for it, because basically you know from the beginning that Dorothy's gonna end up in jail. And then we spend the last 80-ish, not the 80-ish percent, the last 20% going through that and like going through her trial and stuff. Not all of it, but it just felt like we were going out with a bust rather than a bang. I think it does contribute to learning about Dorothy and what she cares about and who she is. And there's some very interesting stuff in that last bit. It just didn't hold up to the rest of the book. Like, we weren't building to a climax. But there were some incredible bits in here. I need to read you. Oh, sorry, I just opened it. In the acknowledgements, she talks about how her book is basically a combination of Elizabeth Gilbert and Bret Easton Ellis, which is Eat, Pray, Love and American Psycho. And wow, what a mind to combine those two things, but it really worked for me. But the part that I wanted to talk about was she's about to, she's killed another guy, and she's about to, how do we say this nicely? Butcher him. Butcher him is the only way to say it. So she starts talking about it, and then it says, "You'd likely enjoy it if I stopped narrating this chapter at this precise moment. You, comfortable in your chair, snug in your bed, rocking solemnly on a train, curved around your Kindle, or propping your book open in your splayed hands, probably making a silent wish for me to table the gruesome details. You're tempted to thumb ahead to skip this section where I detail what she's gonna do. It is for your own good that I tell these bits. It's for your own good that you hear them. You've come too far not to see how the sausage gets made. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Like, the book negs you for reading the book. And I'm obsessed with it. I think that's so incredible. Because it's like, truly, I was like, this is a little bit gross. Maybe I'll just kind of skim it. And she's like, I see you. I know what you're about to do. Don't do it. And the fact that this is a debut is just so incredible. And she talks about how she spent like 8 years writing it, how she lived in Italy for a while. Like, this feels very autobiographical, which I think is how Dorothy feels like such a real person. But also, I spent 2 weeks reading this book, 2 full weeks. Had a hard time picking it up because it drains you so much. One of my goals is the vocabulary, and I'm going to put up a screen now of all of the words that I have from this. This is only a subset too, because I got overwhelmed and stopped highlighting everything that I just didn't know. So, like, is it a 5-star book? Maybe not, because there are definitely things that I would have changed about it. The pacing is all over the place, but I think that maybe also contributes to what I love about it, that it is Dorothy, that I feel like I've understood this woman and I've spent 3 or 4 decades with her, and I love her more so than the book. It's so weird. It's such a weird book to talk about my feelings about. She's an extremely unlikable narrator. She does awful things. There's no one in this who's like a good person. Well, maybe one person. And there are so many things that I wish that we had focused on. But I've said this before, if you leave them wanting more, isn't that a good thing? Doesn't the fact that I would read more of this story mean that it's good? And I think it does, and I think I love it. I think maybe it's a 4-star book, but a 5-star love. And I think I'm okay with that. This was another one that I mentioned in that Riley Marie vlog that she inspired me to read, and yeah, it's also incredible, and everything that she said in that pitch was true. And I've seen this book forever and never wanted to read it, and now it might be my best books of the year. Though I was also motivated to read it because a non-bookish friend was recently saying that she got that book for Christmas. Maybe not so recently then. And I was like, when non-bookish people talk about books, I'm like, oh, I should read that to know what they're talking about. So now I have to find her and be like, what did you think? Did you read it yet? Tell me everything. I don't want to shut up about this book yet, so I'm going to go through and see if there's any more quotes. "A kiss is the beginning of cannibalism," said George Bastille. Or maybe he didn't. Like, what? "If there is a single thread that runs through the fabric of the penitentiary, it is that of arrested development." Like, that's a joke and an observation and a reference. Incredible. So she's talking about how she's hanging out with the murderers in prison, and she says, "Though 1 or 2 may technically be guilty of manslaughter, or what I like to call insufficiently ambitious homicide." She's so cool. Yeah, I'm very confident with my 5-star, because like the whole book is peppered with stuff like that, and I'm usually a plot girly, but I think that's maybe why my hesitation exists. But I'm incredible, amazing, love it. Let's move on to the next thing. The camera's been on for half a second. Why are you like this? I'm here to update you on summer movie, but I'm cheating on it because of course I am, because I did not go to a movie. I went to a play. I went to see Hamilton in Toronto last night and it was really good. Seeing Hamilton live is very interesting because I know the music well. There's a pro shot of it that I've seen. Seeing Hamilton live made me realize I don't think it's a show. I think it's a concept album, because it's just lyrically based and none of the principals dance. There's no dancing in this other than from the ensemble, who just like randomly do backflips and like no one even claps for them. It was a good time. The standouts from it were definitely Lafayette and Eliza. They were both incredible. Yes, you were good too. But it's also a really hard musical. You don't realize how challenging a lot of the music is because Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote it for his friends, basically. He wrote all of these parts specifically for the people that are on the album and in the pro shop. It was quite a time, but we had a good time. Still no bingo. Technically we have one because I have read in the sun prior to today, but I didn't capture it on video, so I don't think it counts. But we'll get it this week, I'm sure. Is it like 6 degrees right now? Yes, but I'm sure it'll turn around any second. I was hoping that today would be my day to read outside in the sun, but then it got cold again. So I'm just curled up under here. Last night I started on Cleat. This is just the proof cover. Here's the real cover. This is an arc that comes out in September, and it is a sapphic romance between two soccer players who are trying out for the national team. I think one of them's on the national team and the other one's, I want to say, auditioning, trying out. This is by Meryl Wilsner, who I've read everything they've written. And it's so weird starting it because it reminds me of the other books immediately in that it's just a little bit clunky. There's just a little something off about it. I think the best way to explain it was the first instance in here. There's two girls, Phoebe and Grace. So Grace is the established one and Phoebe is the up-and-comer. They're sitting around doing a pre-practice talk. Wow, I don't know anything about sports. And Phoebe comes in late and like makes a fool of herself and stuff. But that scene is told from Grace's perspective when she like notices the new girl and kind of brushes her off and then keeps going with what she's doing. Whereas that should have been told from Phoebe's perspective to get the like, what happened on the first day? Like, what are the comical falling apart things? What does she think is happening? Like, that's the more interesting perspective there. And I feel like Meryl Wilsner never chooses the right perspective quite. And then there was a big time jump. So we start off doing the national team stuff, and I think we're there for like a week or two, and we see the first day, and then we jump to a month in the future. And there's no title card that says 1 month later. We're just a month in the future. And I'm talking very negatively of it because these are patterns that I've noticed in Meryl Wilsner, but I keep picking up Meryl Wilsner. I think that it's really fun. I think that they have a really interesting dynamic, very Grumpy Sunshine, that I can see working really well going forward. The one thing that bugged me in this was Phoebe was talking about how she just loves flirting with everybody, and she sort of implies that she can turn straight girls gay, which no, and it didn't, maybe it wasn't meant to come off like that, and nothing happened or anything. That was just the only thing that sort of bugged me. But generally I think it's really good. I think it's fun. I like the level of sportsing in it. Oh, it was very funny because basically their first interaction is they have to do the beep test, which they explain in the book, but everyone's done the beep test, right? In gym, it was horrible. Anyway, their first bet is Phoebe bets that she can beat Grace in the beep test. And so we have like a meet cute over that, which was very fun. But again, there's issues with the pacing because we start at the national team and we introduce like
6 other girls who are on the team and try to get to know them, and then we're done and they're gone now. Will they be on this team now? I don't know. They're on another team in New Orleans. I don't understand how sports work. It's a World Cup year apparently, so I'm sure that they're both going to be pulled up to that, but we'll see. Or maybe there'll be another 4-year time jump or something. But the thing that I like Meryl Wilsner for is the steam. I think that she writes really good steam, and we got our first scene, and it was good. It wasn't as good as other ones, but maybe that's more me, not the book. But generally her books are pretty sex heavy. Actually, I don't think that's true. The first one wasn't. You don't get a sex scene until like the second last chapter, and then the book after that, you get a sex scene in the second chapter. So this one finally struck a middle ground at like 30%. Sorry, have you been able to see that blue the whole time? Don't worry about it. I guess I'm done talking. I'm gonna lie here and read and make some good progress. Sorry, immediately thought of another thing I wanted to say. I've noticed that these characters are described really well. We're really focusing on what they look like and the differences between them, and I keep wanting to go back and reference the cover image, but because I'm reading a proof there is no cover image, so I keep having to look it up on my phone to see what they look like. They're drawn perfectly for how they're described. It's just, it kept bugging me. I kept forgetting that I didn't have a cover and then going to look at it, so that was fun. Anyway, back to reading. So I'm finally reading outside, and it's not sunny. I thought that it would be. The sun is in the sky, but it's over there. It's just not quite in my area, but we're gonna make it work. I'm 80% of the way. Kitties want to come outside. I'm 80% of the way through Cleat, so I'm gonna finish that up today, and it's going fine. It's tough because there's not really much plot outside of the romance, and I think it's really just that the smut isn't really doing it for me in this one, whereas the last one like really did it for me. I think it's fun, and that the characters do feel real. Like, I think I understand these people, but the other problem is they sort of only have one character trait each. Like, Grace is uptight and is struggling with her whole life being soccer, and Phoebe is very scatterbrained. I don't want to say scatterbrained because it sounds like she has ADHD, but they haven't said that in the book, so I don't want to say anything, but let's go with scatterbrained, and she's very focused on making the national team. So it just kind of reads one note, and this book is, I think, 340 pages, so maybe it could have been cut down a little. Also, don't know anything about soccer. They keep talking about cap. They did their first cap, and I don't know what that means, but they were very excited about it. Anyway, I'm gonna read at least a chapter outside, though it's quite windy. No, we have to read outside, because if I do that, then I get a bingo. So let's just sit here and read. How long is this chapter? 15 minutes? Let's read for like 5 minutes, and then we'll go in. This book is doing a good job of incorporating trans characters. There's a trans guy. He's like 22. It feels weird to call him a man, but a man. And then 2 non-binary people, one of whom is on the soccer team. So that's cool. And I think it's doing a good job of incorporating that in a subtle way. With this glorious outside time, we can mark off our bingo. 2 of them. I'm trying to picture it in my mind. We've got the top row and down the middle. Yay, go us. And in about an hour, we will have our 3rd bingo. And I think that's it for this vlog because end of the month is coming up. I will finish this and then we'll wrap it up. All right, wrap up time. I finished Cleat. I feel bad talking about it so negatively because I think it's a fine book. It's gonna be 3 stars from me. I just am noticing the patterns and I kind of want to pick on that. But if you're interested in a sapphic, soccer-y romance, this is going to be the one for you. It comes out in September. But the thing that
killed me, talking about not focusing on the right thing, is that this whole thing is leading up to the World Cup. And the epilogue is them about to go onto the field for the World Cup, which, like, we all figured it was gonna happen. That's kind of how the book works. But then we didn't even get to see the climax. They introduced a different climax, and also in the last clip, I was talking about how Phoebe seems like she sort of has ADHD. Literally, the next chapter after that was Grace talking to Phoebe because she thinks that she has ADHD, which is a very strange thing to introduce in the 11th hour, but sure. And also kind of weird that nothing was addressed for Grace, who I read as having a lot of the signs of autism, which I think is fine. Like, you don't necessarily have to diagnose. It was just weird that we did one and not the other, but it was still a fun time. I always had a good time when I was reading it. 3 stars. So for the wrap up, this is what our bingo board looks like at the end. The weird thing is there were only 2 spots that we didn't hit, and somehow that resulted in 3 bingos instead of 8. And also we did kind of hit them, especially self-care time. Like, reading in general is my self-care. Reading in the sun, self-care. It definitely happened, but there was no interesting footage I could provide, so I'm not counting it. And then unfortunately, the only book I own physically, A Man Called Uwe, I didn't end up getting to. This is a hard one to be in the right headspace for. I would try, but like, the month is over, so we gotta get this video up. And the whole point was to not put pressure on myself, to have this be an enjoyable readathon. The benefit of a bingo is you don't have to do everything, so in a way it's good that I didn't force myself to do it. That also counts as self-care. Very strange for the books though. 2 DNFs, one that I would consider a true DNF, Spite House. The Sophie Cousens I would kind of more consider a 1 star than a DNF. Maybe a 2, I don't know. And then a 3 star with Cleat, and a 5 star with A Certain Hunger. The true surprise of this whole vlog. I could not have seen that coming. I actually went out this morning and I tried to find a physical copy. My local just didn't have it, so I'll have to order it. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed it. I had a great time doing this. I liked being able to stretch it out over the whole month and doing some interesting things, so hopefully there will be another bingo card in our future. But the TBR for next month will be up in just a couple days after this comes out, so subscribe, come and join me. We'll be doing another one of these very shortly. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in another one. Goodbye.